Great to have you with us for tonight's session, again on the Enterprise 2.0 Digital Work Disruption Meetups. We have some new participants, and I would say after we met already several weeks in a row, I would say we do a short introduction, a very short introduction. Because some of those who are in the room today, I haven't met yet. Maybe others don't know each other, so maybe we just start. My name is Björn Egelmann. I'm part of Congress Media. We are a conference organizer, and we did in the past this Enterprise 2.0 Summit. And that's how I know a lot of people here, and that's how somehow this round, this meetup idea got initiated in the first place, because somebody, it was John Husband in the first place, who shared a post from a former conference gathering, and we decided we should continue the discussions a little bit virtually in these times of Corona times and talk about the changes that are happening at the moment. Who's next? Just one.
Hi, this is
Catherine
Shinners. Catherine Shinners from Palo Alto, California, part of Silicon Valley. I do digital workplace Enterprise 2.0 work for companies and organizations. Great to be with colleagues here.
Yes, I could be the next. I'm Mads Richard from Denmark. I facilitate a community that shares example screenshots of internet and digital workplaces in Denmark and around the world. And then I work as a consultant in internet and digital workplace areas.
I'll go next. I'm based in France. I'm American French. Been in France for over 30 years now. It's hard to believe, but it's true. I'm glad right now to be in France and not in the United States, for those of you who are in the United States. My son is in Los Angeles, and fortunately he checks in once a day by phone, and I'm very grateful for that. I have worked in the digital workplace space for, 15, 18 years. I've done a lot of advisory work, and I've conducted a pretty well-known global survey every year for 10 years. And communicate the results. A lot of you are familiar with that already. And I have recently done a survey, well, a year ago, I did a survey on the gig mindset inside the organization, which is my new center of interest, and I'm working on a book about it. The gig mindset is probably like a lot of you, people who work like freelancers, who think like freelancers, they're free and sort of they take initiatives and on and on and on. But the gig mindset inside the organization is people like that, but who work as salaried people inside organizations and have all kinds of constraints and frustrations because their mindset is not a traditional one. So I'll stop there, and anyone who wants to follow up on that, I'll be happy to talk more about it.
Well, I would like to catch up on that. Troy, you want to go first?
Good.
David?
No, you go. You go first.
Yeah, it just was because of the gig people. I'm part of the VUCA Rockers because we want to rock VUCA, as this is the term for all that complexity everyone talks about. In my normal life, I'm a digital transformation manager at Continental, so a global company, and I'm trying to build networks. I'm trying to establish new work there and employee engagement, as today we call that. And also being part of the whole journey for quite a long time now, Enterprise 2.0 and everything. And I'm very happy to be part of it again.
Great stuff, Harold. Hi, David Terra here. My company, Agile Elephant, helps organizations with their digital strategy and collaboration and the like. We collaborated with Bjorn and Suzanne running the London versions of the Enterprise 2.0 Summit and the Enterprise channel called Disruptive Live this week. So we'll talk about that.
We had a lot of fun, David. I'll go next. So most of you know me. My name is Diane Hinchcliffe. I've been involved in the future of work things like Enterprise 2.0 and collaboration, digital workplace since 15 years now. And I've delivered strategies and transformations for some of the largest organizations in the world, written a book about it, speak and do workshops around the world, and still try and keep my pulse on it, spreading the knowledge of innovators like yourselves. So looking forward to the talk today.
I'm Kurt from Interteam. We've been in the field for 20 years this year, and for the last 16 years, I think we've been running Interteam event Copenhagen, and Stockholm is coming up in November, and so is Gothenburg, which is a new a reprise for us. But otherwise, we run the communities in Denmark and Sweden primarily about intranet digital workplaces, and now trying to approach the DEX, digital employee experience field, and we're also a lot in Office 365 because that is for some the digital workplace. That was it for me.
Hi, I'm Anne Bartlett-Bragg. I should say good day. I'm Australian. I have a business in the APAC region based in Sydney, but I live in Barcelona just to, do a time shift. And just to prove that distributed teams actually work, we specialize in human-centered design around how to use technology, and it's not about the technology, it's about the people. So we come very people-focused. I did a PhD many moons ago when we used to call it Web 2.0 before Enterprise 2.0 existed, and it was all about distributed networks and how it impacts the way people learn and write and create meaning. And I sit here and I listen to people talk about distributed teams. I think, yeah, we know that, but we didn't seem to get it through. So I guess now it's our time to make sure we do make a bit of noise.
Nice to meet you. Shall I build on? Hello, very nice to meet all of you. My name is Bonnie Chirk, and I'm a researcher turned practitioner. My doctorate research actually looked at human sense making, and specifically how professionals look for information and look for other experts in the workplace. Eventually, I go into the industry and work in knowledge management, collaboration, Enterprise 2.0, digital workplace, and currently focusing a lot on how do we build a lifelong learning culture in a global organization. So it's really interesting to reconnect, and and also very recently I've been researching and looking at not only how human to human beings collaborate, but also very interested to see how human and AI driven machines actually collaborate as well when they become part of the mix. So really looking forward to the discussion.
I might jump in there. Me too, Bonnie. Good to see you again. I also come from the knowledge management perspective, people, process, technology, all three parts of KM. I happen to know we've been back in Washington, D.C. for 3.5 years a couple of days ago, because when we moved back from London, England to Washington, D.C., two of us started a new knowledge management, organization development, and diversity, equity, inclusion consulting firm. So I think it was Jane that was making the point about gig economy, that we just signed our 43rd contract in 3.5 years. So loving the work that we do and the clients we are lucky to work with.
I'll jump up. Should I carry on, please? Okay. I'm Simon Thompson. About 20 years ago, I made the mistake of taking a web job which had an intranet kind of wrapped in a little bit. And after 10 years of that and getting into SharePoint and that, I got chucked out into the wild world of consulting and contracting. Spent 5 years contracting at Barclays, involved with the award-winning learning portal. They're the global academies, and these days I'll talk about intranets to anyone, anywhere, really. This is my idea of fun, really.
Hey, so hi, Shweta. I'm Indian American living in Belgium. I am a programmer turned lobbyist, and now I am partnering with diagnostic firms and getting them connected with governments for their exit strategy. I fell in love with Enterprise 2.0 in my previous life when I did digital workplace for Bridgestone. So, and I've been stuck. So I do follow this discussion quite religiously, even though I'm not working on it explicitly right now.
Great. Thank you all for this short introductions. For tonight, I thought we have two things that we should discuss. I mean, there has been a lot of work been done, put into this paper that Diane started, also by the questioning of Shita in our second call, where she asked that we need some kind of document that we could present to the management to better formulate or close down the ideas. I mean, this is already the Google Doc. I don't know whether you all know, or I will share again this document resource in the chat. But maybe Diane, can you give us a brief wrap up on where we stand in regards to this document? And also Louise and Jane have been involved into this very deeply. Also David, maybe we add, and Catherine, we add, bring the discussion back to this, what was the idea behind this and what is missing at the moment. Diane, are you still with us? Or maybe somebody else is can jump in on this.
Yeah,
so
sorry, my connection is a little fuzzy, so apologies if I drop out. You guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, we had these problems with you on Monday, Diane. We need to have a bit of a whip round and buy you a faster piece of string to connect to the internet.
I think there's a lot of lag. So the idea was.
Oh.
I can't hear him. It's just me.
It's now me neither.
Well, maybe someone else could speak to it, Diane. We're not able to hear you.
Yeah. Luis, maybe you jump in on this.
Yeah, I can share a few thoughts. So eventually what happened was that good number of us have been contributing into building together the manifesto, which essentially shows where we are today with the whole notion of distributed work and the impact of social and digital technologies. And where we are now is that we develop a number of various different theses or principles or themes that we consider essential for every organization to look into. And everyone has been contributing, at least a number of different folks have been contributing and adding a lot of different insights of how they view different key components in terms of around community building, knowledge management, learning, networking, getting work done, and so forth. And I think where we are now, obviously, we're always looking for everyone's contributions. The openness document, as far as I know, right, Bjorn? So yes. Anyone can contribute. There are a lot of practitioners, a lot of early pioneers out there. So I think that where we are now is to try to get and reach as many as we can of those folks who, you know, they can keep contributing and add their own experiences of what they have seen over the years and everything else. And then David mentioned having an editor. And it was mentioned David Tebbutt, who I know personally, and he's phenomenal in his writing skills to clean up the document. Because I think that if you go through the document, it looks a bit messy, understandably, because it's everyone's thoughts and inputs thrown out there and see what's available and then give it a bit more coherence and a bit more of an understanding of what we can build for it, right? So the way I see it, I don't know what you guys think, is we need more contributions from other folks who have been doing this kind of work from over the years that can add their own experiences, and then do a bit of editing work and come up with a clean-up version, see where we are, see what we all think about it. And if that's all good, and I know David Tebbutt is phenomenal in his writing skills, we're ready to go and rock and roll.
I'd like to just focus, I'd like to ask the question of who are we targeting with the document? I find it full of jargon and stuff that means a lot to all of us, but who are we writing for?
Can I just chip in and start that topic? Because I think part of the style that Diane started us off on, I totally agree with, because it was kind of modeled a bit after the Cluetrain Manifesto and what the Cluetrain Manifesto was doing 20 odd years ago to kind of explain the way marketing was changing changed by the internet and the World Wide Web. We're kind of doing the equivalent of that for the collab, you know, the online collaboration that every organization, every person is actually pulled into now, whether they like it or not. And so for me, it's quite challenging to decide what the audience should be, because I think it's both the leaders involved with getting collaboration right and the participants involved in getting collaboration right. And I think we were trying to aim at quite a broad target. Last thing on my suggestion of David Tebbutt. He happens to be my writing mentor, and for those of you that know him, he's a brilliant editor, very, very clear thinker, and really good at removing himself from the piece and actually picking up on the voice or the voices. And I had him do this about 10 years ago on another piece where it was a beautifully written document with 9 different voices, and he managed to wrangle it together into a 28-page document which actually had one voice. And so that's why I suggested David do that. Thankfully, this is only 2 or 3 pages.
And on top of that, let me just ask one final sentence. He knows the industry. He knows the E2 space like the palm of his hand, because he's been involved for a good while on it by, you know, going to conferences, talking to clients, consulting with them, hanging with a bunch of us and everything else. So he's not foreign to the concept at all.
If I can just chip in one thing about David as well. Sorry, Catherine, is that he also was a software publisher. He used to publish a really clever note-taking application. So he's actually you know, got real life experience of collaboration and this kind of thing. Sorry, Catherine, you carry on.
No worries. What I wanted to say vis-a-vis the audience, Diane has talked about it's aimed at everyone in a way, but more at management and leaders. And if you look at it now, the tone is really about knowledge workers and what they have acquired over and understand themselves as they have been in integrating sort of the digital or the web experience within the organization. And so it's almost an affirmation in many statements about that experience that knowledge workers have had and are eager to expand and to integrate more into the way people work. And as well, you will see that it is speaking to, say, leadership, management, who actually have not participated in it. They've maybe funded it, but not really experienced it or understood what their workforces have actually been accomplishing, but are somewhat still hamstrung. And that's really coming to the fore right now with the COVID experience, in that we've sort of transitioned away from the traditional modality of working. And so this is a great opportunity to bring that into focus, to affirm what the knowledge economy has accomplished, but also what yet needs to be thought through at more of a, I guess, a management leadership level.
I would like to give the voice also to Shweta, as she initiated also this a little bit in the first place.
Yeah, so my idea really stemmed from my in-house experience. So, and I'm still in touch with people I've worked with on digital workplace in-house. And I'm noticing that a lot of them today, unfortunately, I was really in touch with people who are way behind in their time. So you guys are way ahead of the game. And all these people in companies are really internal comms people and IT people, and in many ways HR got involved, came together and rushed into launching Teams or Workplace by Facebook or whatever you want to call it, and they just ran with it now. The thing that has happened now is everybody seems to think that everything is okay, and a lot of them are waiting for some sort of leadership voice. And so that's where that is the preface of what I was trying to say, is that a lot of them really need to hear from people like you who are experts in this field. And a lot of the times your voice is missing and CEOs don't hear from you. CEOs, I'm really CTOs and CEO, really the C-suite, doesn't hear from people like you, because you guys are not fitting into the buckets of IT or IC or HR or so on and so forth. You guys are digital workplace experts. You guys know knowledge management, you know people a lot better, and you have experience doing this for organizations. So I think you're coming from that digital experience network needs to speak up now, is the point I was making. That's
Thank
all.
you.
In response to what you just said, Shita, may I just say one quick thing? We always forget business. It's one of my things I really care for very much. We talk comms, we talk IT, we talk HR, and I think we need to be talking or including business people, people who are in sales, who are in marketing, who are facing customers and so on. For me, of course, maybe it's just my own perspective, that target is a lot harder and more interesting than the IT, HR, and comms targets.
Can I build on that, Jane? I think this is really interesting. So I'm currently in a large pharmaceutical company and working with a lot of business people. I think they are more ready than ever I have seen in my life. And it's just in the past really 8 weeks, suddenly the whole world is now connecting. So I've heard feedback from colleagues saying that in the past, I may be the 1 or 2 people sitting in a remote location connecting with other people, but in the past 8 weeks, it's like everybody is connecting as equal. They are actually learning a lot, and some of them even start talking about, I'm going to miss this experience, and I'm worried that I forget. I think they have actually uplifted their skill a lot, and I think they actually now are open to really learning more and really being part of this and doing more. So I'm just thinking that is something that maybe rather than treating them as not knowing as much, maybe we can bring our experience, but at the same time, how can we open the space for them to build this all together? I feel there is a strong momentum, at least in my part of the world where I'm seeing.
Jane, I wanted to say, I really thank you for affirming the business side. I think what I have experienced as I guide and consult with companies, that the marketing and support organizations have gone digital with their customers and partners. Mm-hmm. They have made that shift. They're having the conversations with customers. They understand what it means to be digitally connected, to understand the way of transferring knowledge and expanding the conversation. What has also been, though, a challenge is that while that is happening perhaps more externally as the customers get more digital, there's still a piece inside the business and other aspects of the business that there's an opportunity to change. And I always say, you can't have a workforce that is networked and connected with your customers if you're not kind of having that ethos inside the company. And I think that's the business opportunity there.
Yeah. The problem, a quick note that I will mention, the problem with business is that usually they don't have any power to decide. And that's my problem with them. If you talk into how transversal they can be, they can do anything most of the time. So it's mostly corporate communications, HR or IT that can go transversally across the various different business units and make it happen. I think that's the original idea of how we put the document in terms of helping them wake up if they haven't, but also be helping us spread within the business what could potentially do. Because like I said before, I don't see anyone of the business. I don't see salespeople coming and telling IT, hey, you need to enable these tools for me.
Louis, I really want to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
A couple of things that are happening right now is, first of all, I'm noticing that HR, comms, IT are basically saying that the ownership of how they do work lies with people managers. So sales managers, whoever, finance manager, whatever. So people managers own this responsibility. So they're distancing themselves from this being an HR or this being an umbrella organization, sub-organization within a company dictating what that does. So that's number one. Number two, the other thing that happens is you have sales and marketing people completely overwhelmed today. They not only do they have to do their regular jobs, now they have to do it in a completely different way, which is remotely. And on top of that, they have to come up with these things that I'm hearing people say, oh yeah, it's my turn today to come up with exercises for my Zoom class today, Zoom meeting. I mean, seriously, some sales guy who has to sell diagnostic equipment is now taking time away from his family and writing up an exercise plan because he has not enough to do, right? So he has to feel like, so sometimes people are asking these teams to do things that they already have enough on their plates because people are losing jobs, and there's enough on their plates because they have,
but
they have to do their jobs and 25 other jobs, and now they have to do this thing on top of their family life.
And that's going a little bit into my point. If we overwhelm them even more with what we're doing, and hey, you need to pay attention to this extra other thing, which is this manifesto of how you need to work.
That's why, Louis, my audience is C-suite.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, completely.
Just forget, let's focus on the people who are going to be
But we still have got a challenge there. We have, and don't take this personally, anyone on the call, right, or on the meeting. We have failed to reach to the C-suite for the last 15 years, because otherwise we would not be here today. So how do we bridge into the C-suite? How do we get to them?
I can help you with that a little bit.
I think there's another problem that we need to start looking at as well, is what we're talking about is where we're at now. I had a group discussion last week with some business leaders around the APAC region, and all the anxiety and things we've been talking about is becoming a bit overwhelming, and they're starting to say, we just want to get back to the office. And with that came, and just do things the way we used to, because now they're overwhelmed. And if you have too much anxiety, you start to just, you can't, it paralyzes you almost. And their attitude was, okay, we didn't like it, we complained, but hey, it was comfortable, we knew what we were doing. And it starts to have a momentum. So something has to counterbalance that. And there has to be some aspect, I think, in this introduction retrospective bit that kind of reflects on, okay, we did it, we coped, we got this far. Yes, we had those problems, but now let's learn from it and enhance it, rather than let people just go straight back to the way they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to my earlier point, I think in my organization, the experience is like we talk about C-suite, we're targeting at the leadership level. So it's through the leadership development angle. There's a bunch of leaders, they are actually very willing. In the past, they may not know what they're getting into because this is what they have experienced now. They are actually very ready and very open to engage. So I think that's an opportunity, whether it's a C-suite, but it's a leadership level, that can be positioned as something. It's really about leading in a new world. How do we work, in this virtual world, and working perhaps in a different way? So I think there's an angle there through the leadership or leadership development side as well.
Well, it would be awesome if there would be more leadership and entrepreneurship, but specifically in that area, I realize a lot of, let's call it followership. So they ask for best practices, they ask for a benchmark, they ask for someone who did it already successfully, because typically you have time for an elevator pitch. So you have to come up with 1 or 2 sentences which answer such a critical problem that you can't even have time to explain something. Right now, I experience documents like we are doing right now. They are appreciated by many people who are curious, but the ones who are not curious, they don't even start reading, because they say they don't have time for that, and their time is needed to solve their actual problems. And social and collaboration and networks and everything we do seems not to connect to their problems.
Yeah. So
they're asking for structure.
Oh, that is a great lead in to me on why doesn't it seem to be connected to their problems? If they're managing people, why is that the digital workplace, the intranet, whatever you want to call it, why is the social collaboration not connecting to the sense that an area where if they applied could really help them solve their problems better. Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah.
I actually agree with Catherine. I mean, hearing what Harold you just said, my organization, my experience here is that actually people are seeing virtual collaboration is helping them to solve the problem. Is the number one problem. Is that they want to work together with the team, they want to work effectively, they want to work with the customers as well. So actually to them, having good collaboration is actually, virtual collaboration is actually crucial. And that's why they actually feel it is important for them to learn, and they learn very quickly. And after the short while, the early stage, instead of trying to figure out, where's the mute button? How do I change my background color? They start to actually ask some really, really good questions. It's like, how can I do it better, right? Because but they do not have clues how to do it better. They may not have read up the literature. They may not know some of the experience we have. How they are learning is actually they are learning as they do it. So what we're trying to do is actually to create some real experience for them, which become very practical. And then once they come out from those meetings and see some of the best practices that's seeded into the design of the meeting, they actually ask, how can I actually now take this experience that I think is more effective than what they have in their mind initially, and then take it to their business? So there's a bit of, I feel there's a transition here going on in these colleagues' mind, at least, to embrace it more, although they may not have all the tips and hints, but they are learning fast, and some of them are really developing their own best practices and starting to share them as well.
In marketing communications, one of the things that we do is prepare buyer personas. And in this case, and I think you guys all do too, employee personas, right? So with this audience, we'll have to do the same thing, right? You're going to have a C-suite, and that's this, there's a variance to that. And you have a segment of the C-suite that is completely convinced of the value of digital workplace. And they're on a road to go, let me know how to do this, and let's go. I want X% of my workforce working remotely, if that's possible for us. So show me. So we are really targeting that group of people. We are not targeting the C-suite that is not convinced of the value of the workplace, of the digital workplace, because they are going to take time. They're going to see how things are going to go, and then they're going to follow. That's what I think, right? And then you're going to have the middle bit who is convinced but not, and there are other things that are taking their attention. We're also not trying to target that group of C-suite. We are really targeting the C-suite that is a bit more progressive. These people have taken the step to launch teams now because people had to start working, and are really thinking about company policies and what does the company mean today. For example, 2 companies I worked for basically are no longer going to invest in those major office buildings anymore because they are happy with half of their workforce working from home if the employees want to do so. So these kind of policies are changing. So we have to be.
So this is a very interesting point, and this is an open question to all of you guys, right? Do we think that the times are going to change to go digital? Because we are all thinking and trying to figure things out with COVID-19, but I don't think that is going to be the last pandemic or the last catastrophic event due to climate change or the next whatever unstable situation that is going to force people to work from home. And I think, the reason why I am very excited about the document is that I don't want to use it for COVID-19. I want to use it for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and develop slowly from there, adapting to what the conditions in. So in the comments where you guys mentioned about having the document and then layers that explain different of the items of the document, this is exactly it, because we can target the personas, we can target the business, we can target the technology, the processes, and everything else, one step at a time. I'm not in a hurry. I still have got 25 years more to work before I can even think of retirement, right?
There's so many unknowns here, aren't there? There's so many unknowns that it's not, as you say, it's not just now, it's into the future. Technology is going to keep on changing. And so this is about giving the businesses the skills they need to keep on changing. It's all about that momentum and just keeping people learning the technology and the next set of technology, whatever comes next.
But Simon and Lewis, it's also about drip feeding, right? So we need to start somewhere where we push this out to a given audience today, a bit of it, in a couple of months again.
I know, and I'm gonna pick up on something that you're saying now, and that Simon hinted, digital literacy. Right now, we're working with a lot of people who've just been pushed over the shark tank to swim without not knowing how to swim.
Correct.
And we need to start on the very basics, which is figure out where there's some sort of considered digital skills that people should have to feel comfortable regardless of what they're doing in a digital work environments. And I think that once we have that kind of comfort in place, we can then start thinking about how we can go and transform the organization. So that's one of the things where I think that HR has got a very critical role in pushing learning about those digital literacy, because it's the only group that has got the responsibility right now. I don't see first-line managers telling their employees how to use digital tools, because they're the first ones who don't know how to use the tools themselves. They never use them.
Well, I wanted to just say this whole idea of retrenchment back to the office, I think that is a safety catch that people are saying, if we could just go back, I would know what to do. Now it feels very anxiety producing because it has shifted everything. But there was a very interesting blog post by Frederic Fillou this week about tech and the return to the office. Here in Silicon Valley, we have the headquarters of many of the global Web 2.0 companies, obviously with Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple, etc. The idea that they're going to take everybody back into the office, is really up for rethinking. The commercial real estate industry is in grave distress. They're not going to be able to bring everybody back. Now that everybody's home, they're rethinking the quality of life of paying $9,000 a month for housing in San Francisco to spend hours on a bus to get to work. The buses will have to have social distancing. The offices will have to have social distancing. So people who work here are actually thinking, do I want to stay here? Can I work remotely as a way of life in some place where my quality of life is higher? And for companies, they're saying, do we really want to invest in all the ways we have to support workers in this very high-end kind of experience, office experience? So I think those may be sort of the C-suite pressures and questions that might come to bear, rather than let's work better digitally. I think working better digitally will be an outgrowth of that. But I couldn't agree with you more, Luis, on making it relevant, this paper, for not just for COVID distress, but longer than that.
Yeah, because, I can tell you from firsthand experience that I've been working distributed myself for 18 years, right? And you guys know that I used to work for IBM. By pure mistake, I found out that the reason why I was allowed, or one of the reasons why I was allowed to stay in Gran Canaria, is because I was cheaper to the company in the Netherlands, not having to pay my office space anymore. CFOs are gonna go like, hang on, are you telling me that I can save this amount of money by not telling people to go to the office and work from home and have their own home office in their terms and working the way they do using the digital tools that we are already paying for? Gosh, that's gonna be tremendous. I mean, Barclays in the UK is saying that we're not gonna go anymore to big, large offices and not go like, thank you, welcome to my world, right? I think what I'm trying to say with all of this is that these conditions are not going away. They're going to be there with us for many decades to come, or many years to come. And what I think it is important for us is first to understand we're still in the midst of the pandemic. So in the back of our minds, we still have got, am I safe? Am I secure? Is my family secure? Is my family safe? Are my risk groups, relatives safe, right? All of that is going on until there is a secure and safe vaccine coming in, which can take a year, 18 months, we don't know, right? I don't think that people who have been exposed to risk groups or who have got family members or friends in risk groups are going to go and say, hey, I'm going to go to the office and then I'm going to hang out with my parents or grandparents. Nope. They're going to say, I need to have a certainty that my risk groups are safe. And then I might want to go back to the office maybe once a week or twice a week.
I mean, for me, there's an opportunity into that, because I fully agree with you, Luis. I think we see that a lot, that many companies will go into that discussion. Do we get them back? Do we offer them something, or do we even cut down the space and do something sensible with it? But for me, the opportunity in there is that people have been very fast to adopt to video conferences and all that. So that was not the biggest problem, I would say. But what they are lacking, and the longer it takes, the more it becomes visible, is the informal exchange. And that is what typically keeps a company alive. And what we see in the meeting culture, there you go, have your topic and go out, and you have a specific group and there's no one else in there. And all the coincidence, all the things happening at the coffee machine, at the lobby and everywhere else, this is where you learn about new projects, where you get to know new people, where you are connecting, putting relationships together. And there is, in my eyes, our opportunity, because enterprise social networking is exactly the place in the digital world to do this. And maybe we have to position that and make that an offer specifically for this environment now.
But if you look into it, the reason why we have adapted so relatively nice to virtual meetings is not because of how easy the tools are. It's because we're trying to mimic the office space into online. There are a lot of people who do not feel comfortable at all sharing stuff digitally. Why? Because there's a footprint. There's an audit. My words with my name out there. And if I write something stupid, then people will think that I'm stupid, and I have got that evidence for the rest of my life. That's why there's such obsession with virtual meetings right now, and why people are burning out like crazy, because they are like 6-7 hours a day on Zoom meetings. What I think we can do to help them is understand that with, like you mentioned, Harald, with enterprise social networking tool, the vast majority of work can be done offline through those community spaces, team spaces, blogs, wikis, forums, or whatever, and that we need to build on that digital literacy to tell people and feel comfortable that no one is going to think that they're silly for sharing a stupid comment online.
Luis, taking that serious would mean we need a social network where you are anonymous.
No.
No.
Thanks. I was just trying to.
I'm sorry about no. I'm sorry about no. I think
mean that.
Why not? What is the fear? Why is that a no from a lot of you?
From a no for me would be that if you are working on the internet world, whether you use whatever name or whatever, I don't care. But if I'm doing business with you, I need to know who you are as a person and what you look like, because I do business with people, not with trolls or assholes who basically hide themselves behind anonymous stupid shit because they want to get a break with it. Nope.
So Luis, just one quick question. Sorry to pick on you today. No, because I'm of the belief that one of the many reasons why this transition has happened smoothly for some people is also because in their personal spaces, like on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and so on, people are a lot more. They're a lot more out there, right? They're doing TikToks like crazy. So that kind of experience, they're bringing it into their professional space. So if that's the case, and if the personal side allows you to have Pig54 as your Instagram name, you should be able to say that in the professional space. And I'm not saying that may be a question that may come up in the professional space. And if the communities have to be open and non-judgmental in a professional space, then communities should allow anonymous. Just a discussion point.
I'm sorry.
But why can I not troll you in a professional space?
Because I want to do business with you and I need to trust you. And I'm not going to trust Pig54 versus Shweta. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do business with people, not with anonymous.
Louis, that concept is changing.
Hang on. Let me just try to say.
Just a short answer on this.
I think the short answer is trust. Do you trust Pig 54 without not knowing who they are? Or do you trust Luis Suarez, who lives in Gran Canaria and looks with a beard and long hair because of the pandemic?
There's really good studies to back Lewis up, because it's called disinhibition, and people will say all these things. If you give them another character, they take on the role of the character and they become trolls and troglodytes and crazy people. And then you move across into their professional world and they're back to them again. You go, who is that person? And they go, oh, that's Pig 54. I go, what the? It happens. It's an online phenomenon. We don't see it as much face to face because it just doesn't happen. Second Life, exactly, David. Do you remember that? Oh my God.
But you know, I think the only one quick point is, I think I'm really excited about the fact that the professional and personal lives are blending now, finally. One of the things that we mentioned a couple of calls ago is the fact that we are now seeing a CEO in an informal space with his hair all messy, with him wearing a sweatshirt or whatever, right? So if that's the case, if professional and personal lives are mixing together, why are we so stuck on you only trust me if I'm white and having a fancy accent?
Because you humanize people with identity, not putting a mask. So if there's one thing that all of this working digitally now is doing, especially for senior leaders, is that it's humanizing them. Is letting everyone know that apart from being a very high senior alpha male profile executive, there are dads and their toddlers boss them around like crazy.
So this seems like a bit of a rabbit hole. Shall we?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad that Anne backed me up, saying that there's research saying use your name. I think to me, at the end of the day, it's all about trust. And I think that before we would venture into contemplating the conversation of anonymity, I would want to ask, why do people need to resort to anonymous versus being themselves? There's a much bigger fundamental problem of people not being accountable for who they are and what they do. That's a HR problem. It's not a business problem.
Whistleblows about the only context. I think you could talk about it.
I would like to take up a comment that Simon mentioned earlier, where he certainly added that technology is changing now also a lot of our processes. Within these times of COVID, many business processes are getting even more digitized, like invoicing and so on. And so from there, we certainly have to think about really redesigning all the collaboration. So if we come back to the focus of the document, we shouldn't focus on what we relate or what we summarize as suggestions from the past, but for the future, and how the future of work is really turning in this instant moment. I think so. Therefore, and this is a little bit. I mean, that's a little bit what in the old rework that has been done over the last weeks. I think. At the beginning, Dion phrased the dynamic organization into it, and somehow with all the rework of the document, this got a little bit lost. The future vision of the work, I would say.
One little thing I was thinking there. Was that so? It was so often talking about collaboration, and does it always have to be collaboration? Can't we be finding better ways to just get the thing done, to get it into the process and then and dealt with, rather than handing on to someone else, having another discussion about whether it's the right kind of approach, getting across those boundaries in the organization, which are there to slow things down, which sometimes can be a good thing. So do we want to be thinking about, is it just collaboration, or is it this sort of deeper area where things are getting done quicker, better, faster?
Good. So we are somewhat at the point that we are already entering the last 10 minutes of our 1-hour sessions, as always. I think we should agree on some action points that we all have a last final look at the document, add our comments on this, and then we go into this editing process with the recommended person, David Tebbit. So maybe we should go further on that point. So actually,
may I just ask one question for the document? Would it make sense for the others to somehow clarify the words and terms we are using from our perspective? So when we talk about networks, when we talk about agile, about transparency and all those things, I have the feeling that our C-level people are using exactly the same terms, but with a completely different meaning. Does it make sense to have that in such a document, a short glossar where we say, hey, transparency doesn't mean big brother. It means...
Yes.
Yeah, I think a glossary will help us tremendously. We need to build narratives for the common knowledge practitioners, not just for those who have been knowing this well for years. So that's a great idea.
Their governance can be very different to our governance.
Correct. Yeah. Good point.
And David and Lewis, if you guys want, I'm happy to talk to the editor from a C-suite point of view, but it's your call. I leave it to you guys to decide.
You were the one who initiated the request. So as far as I know, you are the instigator.
Oh no, the troublemaker. That's my new Instagram name. No,
right. So no, I think that's perfectly right. I think, you know, from the conversations that we're having, and this is my recommendation, and then I'll keep quiet because I know that I've been talking too much today. Sorry. I would say that the focus that I would do, the tip that I would do and throw out everyone on the table, listening in and everything else, is start asking inside the organization, what are we doing around digital literacy? How are we helping employees build digital skills? And if you get no for an answer, push. Why not? And see what happens.
Okay, for the last... Oh, David.
I was just going to chip in and say I've warned David Tebbit that this task may be coming his way. And just by coincidence, what he happens to be working on at the moment is some training around the psychology and behavior of how to be a more effective participant in meetings.
Okay.
That happens to be what his brain is working on at the moment.
So for the last 5 minutes, I would like to take the chance and point out to a post of Bonnie, because that's also was the idea, again, reintegrating her into this discussion. She made a very nice posting on LinkedIn about her sense-making work, well, actually this one sentence addressed me a little bit. Maybe I would like to ask Bonnie to explain a little bit what was behind this this post and give us some more ideas, because this the sense-making methodology sounds very interesting at this point.
Yeah, very happy too. I think what this is about is like, it's regardless of technology or not, what we're talking about is how people actually make sense of the world and how we both self-reflect but also connect with one another, right? So a lot of times really poor practice, poor communication practice, actually it's taken from offline into the online space. So, and therefore I think Luis talked about, you know, you can still have all the Zoom meeting and you can still have all the poor communication practice and just do it in Zoom. And therefore I see Dion talk about, you know, people are Zoom out and they are actually quite frustrated, right? And so what I'm calling for is, can we think about treating ourselves as living, breathing human beings and treat one another as living, breathing human beings? And therefore, when you talk and communicate, there are some research-driven methodology. We actually ask us to really elaborate our thoughts in a way, share your thoughts, share where you're coming from, think about where you're heading, what are the challenges you're facing, what kind of magic wand I want to wave, and what kind of help I need. And if colleagues can actually have the discipline and really have that deep understanding, reflection, and connection with one another, those will be some very good practices that we can bring online. So it's really calling for old methodology and research-driven. A lot of research has been done, and just reflecting on nowadays when we suddenly all go online, let's reflect on some of these good practices. It's about making sense of ourselves, making sense of how we connect with one another. And I see somebody have posted a link onto the chat, so feel free to go and take a look.
Very good.
So we are already at the end of this hour sessions. Thank you for participating in this, and hope to see you all on the Google document and comments and add-ons to the document. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.